Hello, my friends, family, and esteemed colleagues. Back on assault. I have been asked by several people to give my opinion about the studies that are pointing to salt in diet destroying the microflora in the gut. So, this is stupid, but anyway, we are going to address this. So, we look at the science and the experts. Salt effects on gut bacteria. Depletion of lactic acid production bacteria is caused by salt. Apparently, study on mice showed that high salt diet can lead to depletion of lactic acid producing bacteria because they say that amount of lactobacillus in the gut diminishes if we have too much salt in our diet. And this was discovered on a study on rats. Then another changes in gut microbiome composition. Okay, because it destroys some bacteria. So now you have this balance of gut bacteria. And of course, they say high salt diet have been found to alter the consumption of the the composition of gut microbiome. And leading to less beneficial bacteria action in the gut, which increases inflammation. Okay, if you have misproportional bacteria, you're going to have inflammation of the gut. And this will have impact on immune cells. High salt diets have been shown to influence the balance between pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory immune cells. This is science. Now, let's just use Google. Observation shows us that vegans become lactose intolerant. Now, they should have really multiple and beautiful microflora because they have this variety of vegetables and variety of foods that are necessary to create a complex and beneficial microflora. Now, why are they lactose sensitive? Why they cannot consume dairy? It causes diarrhea and cramps. Why? They should have lactobacillus. They eat perfect diet. And you know, they have healthy flora, so they should be able to digest anything. Well, very often, mostly, those are the people that suffer from SIBO. Now, what is SIBO? They call it small intestine oversaturation with microflora. Why? Well, because there's so plentiful shitty flora that has to be there because they are eating crap that they should not be eating, that body cannot break down. So you have a microflora growing to break it down. And no lactobacillus. Actually, when they drink a milk, there is no lactase. Nothing to construct, to change the lactose in the milk into fiber. So, where is the sense over here? No matter how much salt you eat, this is not going to happen. Well, I consume huge amount of salt. Huge amount of salt. Almost every week, my wife and I go through 1 pound of salt. And I have no problem with dairy, which means I have plenty of lactic acid, because it's lactic acid, which is so-called also produced by lactobacillus, that is supposed to maintain the healthy gut. But you don't have it in vegans. You don't have it in most vegetarians. You have it in carnivores. And now, of course, a lot of carnivores don't eat salt because they have been told by Ajanas, whatever his name is, that salt is detrimental to our health. This whole spiel around the importance of gut bacteria, it's utter nonsense. We don't need it. It is created when we are eating incorrectly, and we cannot break, body is not prepared to break this kind of a diet, this kind of a food. We don't have cellulose. We cannot break cellulose. So whenever you eat green vegetables raw, you basically are eating paper, wet paper, because you don't break any of it. It just goes through. Now we are being told, yeah, but you need the fiber, because the fiber makes you regular. Otherwise, if you don't have fiber, you will have constipation. Well, how many people that eat cooked vegetables have constipation? Plenty. Because many of the defensive poisons that plants are making become neutralized with heat. Fiber is still there because cooking does not, well, cooking will, high temperature, will break the fiber and will release the nutrient what is within a cell. But still, fiber will remain. Same as we break down protein, but still fiber sometimes remain, connective tissue that helps you to pass the stool. Now, we are being told fiber is the one that holds the water, and that's why stool is passable. But a lot of people eat vegetables and they're in constipation. Because when you cook it, you destroy the, neutralize some of the poison. So you're not poisoning your gut. So your cells open up and they absorb. And since they absorb, and we are all toxic, so the body is eager to get as much plasma as possible so it can cleanse. So when intestine is not being terribly poisoned, the less you poison it, the better absorption it has. And when need for plasma is high, it just keeps absorbing and dries your excrement, dries the content of the intestine. And when it dries, it shrinks, becomes hard, causes constipation. You have a problem in the bathroom to evacuate. Now, vegans very often have the opposite. They have diarrhea. Why? Because the green, natural, raw vegetable is still loaded with protective toxins and closes the cell for absorption. Cells close their membrane, so they don't absorb. So they remain dehydrated in the body on the blood and cellular level, but they eliminate liquid stool because it was not absorbed, because intestine is poisoned. Now there are many additives in food which cause poisoning and cause problem for absorption. And people suffer more and more with constipation. And I have clients that have suffered with constipation all their lives in childhood, constantly. Now, this motion that the change of microflora is creating inflammation in intestines, this is nonsense. Remember, somebody has to pay for scientific work, for these experiments. Who is paying for them? Big Pharma. So you better produce something that Big Pharma can use to sell their product. If you don't do that, you're not going to be funded. So what results do you think are going to be flashed around? This is all garbage science. And none of it says it was proven. No. It points to, it seems like that this happens. Nothing says, it was proven that salt destroyed da-da-da. No, it looks like, it seems like. It points to the fact. Nonsense. It's all nonsense. But when you want to convince others in doing what you are doing, which vegans always do, then they pick and choose exactly what suits their narrative, what is going to boost the information that they need to project to convert other people, or to prove to them that what they are doing is right. It's all nonsense. No immune cells produce inflammation. Okay? That's the first one. I have people complaining, well, not to me directly, because they don't work with me. If they would work with me, we would solve the problem. But they leave notes or comments under some other comments, like, oh yeah, well, this is really not true what Darko is saying. The SIBO, I have a SIBO and I was on a protocol, 3 months and no changes. Well, why do you think you have a SIBO? Because you had symptoms. Okay? Those symptoms are usually symptoms of inflamed intestines. And since we are talking SIBO, small intestines, okay, so it's small intestines. If it is in colon, we would just give it a different name. So now, why do you have inflammation in small intestine? What causes inflammation? Toxicity. It's a toxic accumulation. Why intestines? Well, probably toxic food. So more toxins, cell close down, they don't absorb, they get dehydrated. A lot of toxic stuff remains in a tissue of intestine. Now, if you go on a protocol and you start hydrating and flushing, number one, if you go on a fast with a plasma, you don't eat anything, and you drink every morning, you flush with a 1 liter or liter and a half of plasma, and you are having diarrhea. So you are flushing the system. How many bacteria do you think you're gonna have in your gut? Not only in a small intestine, but throughout the gut, even colon. Very, very few. Because number one, you are not providing food for them, so they have nothing to eat. And then you are flushing the system. So diarrhea, what causes this diarrhea? It is not the salty water only, because there's only surplus that you will be eliminating. But what is happening is, since you are not poisoning your system with toxic food, the cells of the intestine will have better absorption because they are not being poisoned from the content of the intestines, of the gut. So you will absorb much better. So you drink this and body absorbs, but then since the gut is toxic, some of the plasma will be immediately trapped by the gut and will be squirted out with toxic mucus back into intestines. And within a half hour, usually 45 minutes, bingo, you start having diarrhea, which is full of toxic mucus. It's not the water that you drank. It's not the plasma that you drank only. Maybe a little bit of it's still there. But it is what is being released as a flush of the toxic mucus. Now, these are toxins that have been embedded in the intestines, and cleansing of tissue and on a cellular level. This is a lengthy process. It happens in spurts. So your gut bacteria are gone. They are flushed. There's nothing to talk about in there. And you still have the symptoms. And the symptoms may be occurring for months to go. Why? You don't have any more the gut bacteria that supposedly causes, you don't have the SIBO. You have a toxic gut that needs to hydrate and cleanse. And in some people, this takes a year. They feel bloated. Why do you feel bloated? Because the toxic intestine is trapping the liquid. Some of it may expel directly out, but some of it through lymphatic system is supposed to be going into the blood, and it cannot go because it became very toxic. So because of the program that run our system, it is not allowed to be released into the bloodstream rapidly, not to cause septicemia. So the whole lymphatic circulation and movement in the gut slows down. And you get this big belly, bloated. It's all toxic lympha that is stuck in a tissue because of the mechanism of the system. You have to get it out. How you get it out? Well, you either poison the body more with some stronger toxin that body has to eliminate, Lasix, some laxative, which then will force override of the program, and body will have to find liquid plasma to use to eliminate this thing, and it will suck stuff from a tissue as much as it can, and this will decrease the inflammation, the water retention. It's not really inflammation. So we just have to understand the body correctly, which doctors don't, because they have been trained to misunderstand the body. Everything we are reading in scientific brochures and books and articles, it's nonsense. It is there to brainwash medical professionals. And since very few are thinking, they just do what they are trained to do. Read, memorize, and regurgitate. Parrot, spit it out. Well, even parrot understands what it's talking about. Doctors have no freaking clue. I know. I'm one of them. I had no idea until I start researching on my own, going against the system. That's the only way. But then you are doomed. You lose your license. You cannot work. If you try, you end up in a jail. So, people like me depend on donations. For sure, nobody is going to finance me to do research. And we don't need to do research in lab. Everything is so obvious. Only if you start thinking. But to do that, you have to engage the Google, which people forgot to do. So everything we are being told about the gut bacteria is nonsense. Gut flora is changing rapidly according to what we eat. Within hours. Recently, one of my clients said, Darko, if I don't have probiotics, I get constipated. I cannot go to the bathroom. I'm drinking plasma and I'm not having diarrhea. I'm constipated unless I take probiotic. What does that tell us? Only one thing. For sure, probiotic is not bringing water in. So how come that you have now soft stool? Because it poisons your gut. And gut cannot absorb, and water remains in the gut, making the stool softer. That's the only logical explanation. But logic has nothing to do with science. Because if you imply logic, you cannot be scientist. Scientist has to be brainwashed moron. Moron. Guys, my friends, you are morons. Anyway, so what can I tell you? If you cannot see what is in front of your face, what can I tell you? Salt does not create any problems in the body, but without it, you cannot hydrate, you cannot cleanse. You need it. Every time you sweat, every time you urinate, even when you defecate, you are losing plasma, you are not losing water. You are losing plasma. You are losing water and minerals. Lick your sweat. It's salty. Try your urine. It's salty. If you don't replenish those minerals, and the only way you can replenish them is through salt, not through eating chelated minerals through vegetables. Just look at herbivores. You need to supply them with the salt. Otherwise, they'll die. They should be the one loaded with salt. No? It's contrary. It's the animals that are loaded with salt. They cannot survive without salt. So if you eat animal diet, you don't need to supplement salt unless you are going to cleanse. And then you use salt for cleansing purposes. Different thing. And this is why there is a different thing how you use salt. Which way? What do you want to achieve? If you just want to hydrate, it's okay to put a little bit of salt in your mouth and drink water over it, or put, I don't know, 1/4 teaspoon of salt per liter. And little by little, you are going to, be maintaining your plasma levels, maybe rising them slightly. But that also depends on the diet. If you eat vegetable diet and you don't use salt, then you are going to go into dehydration. Because the liquids that you drink, the water that you drink, if you cannot properly mineralize it to achieve proper electroconductivity, the body will eliminate. I explain this very often when the alternative medicine is saying, no, distilled water is going to do much better job in cleansing, because it is obvious when you drink distilled water, you urinate much more and sweat. Well, why? Because your body cannot hold the water because it does not have enough minerals to support it. So it has to eliminate water. It cannot properly bond to mineral level and to achieve the optimal electroconductivity. Same happens with a lot of salt. So if you drink seawater that has way more salt than the blood needs, blood has approximately 9 grams of salt per liter. Seawater down in tropic has about 30-35 grams. So is that going to kill you? Well, if you drink it rapidly by liters, definitely it is going to be a problem for you and can cause death. But if you do it with the sips, little by little, then you are giving enough time for the body to calibrate and maintain the hydration correct and eliminate the surplus of the minerals, making your urine saltier than the sea. There's no problem. And you survive. And there are many instances pointing to this being true, of people drifting at sea for 40 days and having to drink seawater, and they're completely healthy when they rescue them. No problem. Yeah, but who is thinking? And who is observing? So, stop with this nonsense of salt being toxic. Yeah, table salt. On purpose, they make it toxic. Then they say, you see, salt, we told you. When you're loaded with aluminum oxide, which is white powder, of course it's toxic. When you put toxic potassium iodine in it, to iodize it for your health, it's going to destroy your kidneys. Of course, it's toxic. But if you take natural sea salt that has over 84 minerals in it, your sodium level actually drop, because the sodium concentration does not have to be that high if you have other minerals in there. And you get some strontium, iridium, rhodium, some gold, some silver, all that mix comes from seawater and creates a healthy body. So remember, what everybody knows, it's lie. Because we are being fed with lies, so we remain stupid and easily controllable. Thank you for listening. I hope this makes sense to you. It makes sense to me. Love you all. God bless you. Namaste.